What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Becoming a 5-Star Stylist. I am Robert Alexander. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, thank you so much for listening. And if you love this podcast, do me a favor and rate it 5 stars. And if you're watching on YouTube, you may notice a little bit of a difference around here. This is a brand new podcast, and I am focused on improving the experience for my viewers every single week. So let me know what you think of this, guys, when you get a chance and see it. Today's episode is about discipline versus motivation. As you know, this podcast is about everything outside of hair. So creating a foundation for being a successful hairstylist before we even pick up the shears, before we pick up the hot tools, before we pick up the blow dryers and the products. It's important holistically to be well as a person before you step into becoming a professional. The reason that I emphasize the importance of this is because I've done it many ways. I've used motivation and I've been supercharged, rocket to the moon type of energy. And as the law says, what goes up must come down. And therefore, there were times where I would be man on fire, go, go, go. And there's no way to sustainably maintain that level of momentum in a healthy way. That being said, it's oftentimes appropriate to shift gears. And maybe this isn't news to all of you, but for me, it was a realization, it was an epiphany that I shift gears and deploy the ability to become more disciplined. And so in today's episode, I want to talk about why both are important and when they are appropriate. So first things first, let's talk about some pros for why discipline is so amazing. And so number one, it builds consistency and reliability, helping you meet deadlines and deliver consistent results. So one thing I started to do most recently is live out of my calendar. And what that means is I have appointed times for handling the many things that I'm working towards right now. I am educating myself in a lot of different ways. And in order to not overwhelm myself, it's important to have that phone go off at a certain time to say, hey, devote 30 minutes to reading this chapter, whatever the case is. So that way it's a ticked box. It's a hit of dopamine for me because I knocked out an achievement and I can move on. And it's non-committal in the sense that what's 30 minutes of reading? That's easy. And if it isn't, then I implore you to just do 10, just do 5. Shout out to the book Atomic Habits. If you have not read it, life-changing book. But that's the reason, one of the pros of discipline. Another one is foster long-term success. As habits created through discipline compound over time. So even though I'm about to hit 15 years as a hairstylist, I've never had the patience to say, in 5 years, I want to be this. I'm like, no, I want what I want now. But now I'm starting to adopt the mentality of working towards long-term goals. And a phrase that I started to say probably this year is, my future self will thank me for blank. That being said, no goal is too big, no goal is too ambitious when it's broken down into smaller parts. In my 5-Star Stylist program, I break down how we're able to achieve 6 figures by breaking it down into 12 months, by breaking that down into 4 weeks, by breaking that down into 4 or 5 days, by breaking that down into 6 to 8 hours, by breaking that down into X per hour equals this many days of work, this many weeks a month, this many months a year, so on and so forth until we achieve that goal. And we don't always want to do it. We don't always want to put the reps in. We don't always want to go to the gym. But when we have the objective of achieving X, brick by brick, we're able to achieve it. And even if we take a day or two off here and there, in the macro, when you zoom out, you're able to see that line, even if it goes down a little bit, generally is going up, and that's what we're all working towards. The third pro to discipline is that it reduces dependence on emotional states, ensuring productivity even on off days. And I kind of just spoke to that, but if I feel I don't really want to do it kind of energy, we're not here to talk about your wants. Not right now. We're here to execute the goal, and we're going to devote 6 of the 24 hours of this day to doing that. And it's a stern but gentle voice. And I do keep in mind that there's an inner child that has to be guided in all of us, and it's important to do so gently because I don't want to resent myself or work against myself in achieving my goals. So we we support one another in the goal of achieving whatever the set goal is. Some of the cons to discipline, because in everything in life there are pros and cons, it can feel rigid and uninspiring if the stylist doesn't leave room for creativity. So being a hairstylist, most of what we do is creativity. And if we're so focused on discipline, we could become one of those stylists who have great technical skills but no creative skills. And there is success in that, but if you want to live to the maximum of your potential, then this is why it's important to find that balance. Another con is overemphasis on discipline. Overemphasis on discipline may lead to burnout without moments of rest or joy. So we gotta go. We gotta remember, I said we're just gonna devote 6 of these 24 hours of the day to it. There have been times where I just sat at my computer so fixated on knocking out the entire mountain in a day that by 11, 12 o'clock at night, my brain was just spinning like an office chair, just creaking and empty. And that's not cool. That's not cool. I'm not happy that I did that to myself. Excuse me, but even in that, I learned that we can't do that. So what I'll say is that even when you go too far in things, let it be a lesson to you. Something that I always say is experience is the best teacher, and I'm not the only one that says it. We've all heard it. But also there comes a time and a wisdom in life where you can just listen. But even if you don't and you want to test it out for yourself to see if you are the exception to the rule, personally, I urge you to do it so that you can learn and see for yourself, because that's the type of learner I am. So next, let's talk about motivation and a few pros for motivation. So motivation provides bursts of energy and creativity. So the other side of things, helping us innovate and elevate our work, right? So there's nothing more inspiring than you just invested in a class that's teaching you a whole new skill and you are pumped up. Let's go. I'm ready to lay that frontal now. I'm ready to do those K-tips now. That's fantastic. And I definitely urge you to lean into that energy to get that practice in so that you are able to apply it as soon as it's in your mind and your heart and your body, etc. Another pro is encouraging motivation encourages taking on challenges in pursuit of ambitious goals. So absolutely, just to get that ball rolling, let's get pumped up, let's get on fire for achieving our goals. But even with the language, pumped up, on fire, is not sustainable long term. And so it's fantastic to use that energy to get the ball rolling. But how many of us have gotten that ball rolling, started working out in January, and by March, it's like, oh, I'm actually ready to go to brunch and get that mimosa and the and the chicken and waffles or whatever. So it's important to use that fire to get the ball rolling, but no one on earth can rely on that fire solely. So that's a pro, but just keep in mind, it's not enough. Number 3, motivation can create excitement and attract others that being clients and peers who feel inspired by the stylist energy. So this is a big one for me. I definitely enjoy inspiring others. That's why I started this podcast in the first place. It feels good to make people fall in love with what they're doing. I've fallen out of love with hair several times over the years. I've had stylists who were mentors to me and taught me things and were older than me and fell out of love with it. And I love being an example, one small example of the freedom of being creative and pursuing it like it is the most important thing in the world. Excuse me, I love that so much. So that being said, I'm motivated to do that. But one thing that I've had to be mindful of in my personal life is, as much as I love to be an inspiration to others, it is a finite amount of energy in my vessel, in my body. And if I continuously pour into others, I feel depleted. I feel burnt out and I feel empty. I physically feel empty for it. And so it's important to give, but stay connected enough to yourself that you know when it's time to be quiet, recharge. And so motivation is a superpower, but with great power comes great responsibility. And if you aren't able to discern and feel that shift in your body when you're getting low, you could end up depleted. And that's when that huge burst of energy becomes stagnancy for any duration of time. So it's important to be able to feel that difference. And I kind of already spoke to the cons. So with motivation, it's temporary and often fleeting, leading to inconsistency if relied upon exclusively. Highly dependent on external factors, which can lead to disappointment or frustration. And lastly, it can create a start-stop cycle where productivity wanes once the initial excitement fades. So I explained those things already. And hopefully with that, you can understand when there's a great time to get that ball rolling, but when it's important to shift gears and go into a more disciplinary mindset so that you can maintain a sustainable cadence with what you're doing. And I'd also want to say behind all of that, that you may not get it right the first time. You may not get it right the first year. You may get it right the second and then fall back off on the third. But as long as you have an awareness of how things are going, and as long as you're checking in with yourself, most importantly, you will be able to recognize, oh, this is how I fell off a little bit, but let's see what we can do to get it back on point. And I emphasize the importance of this because I've had a harsher internal voice who was kind of like, get it right, you need to do it right, stop messing up. And yes, every now and then that type of energy creates the success of Michael Jackson. But more often than not, it breaks spirits. And more often than not, it creates complexes within us that we are not capable of doing great things in a great space, both physically and mentally in a great space. And so as long as you maintain the soil, I'm sorry to speak, so I'm not sorry for it, but I know I'm speaking very zen today, but I hope that the message is still coming across for you. As long as you're able to till the soil of the garden that you're in, and as long as you're able to nurture the space that you're in, you will always, as a seed, grow. And oftentimes there may be weeds, there may be little critters who are trying to dig a hole in the garden and get those seeds. And it's up to us to be very aware so that if and when those obstacles come about, inevitably they will, we are able to do what it takes to take care of ourselves. Whatever that means, we're able to maintain a common thread of accomplishment. So 3 ways to practice discipline as a hairstylist. Just because it's important to have actionable steps. Otherwise, what are these words? So number one is set and stick to a schedule. So I mentioned earlier, I live out of my schedule now. And the interesting thing about that is the more you do it, the more you love it. And so I can't show you because it's on this phone, but I have so many time blocks in my schedule for everything from wellness to my social life to exercise to self-care to family time, to my 5-star stylist program. Each one is color coded and has a time, and that's how I'm able to maintain order with doing more than I've ever been doing in my entire life. So using a calendar or booking software to block time for work, that's also obviously a huge part of my schedule. So time for your clients, time for education, time for personal growth. I think I mentioned in another episode, I've started doing yoga recently, which has been very, very satisfying for me. And so that's number one. Number two is create a routine. And that speaks to everything that we've already said. Just one small thing that I started doing is affirmations. And I have a reminder in my phone at a few times a day with an image of the affirmations that I want to say to myself. And it goes off and it takes me less than 20 seconds just to read it and affirm it and embrace it, accept it, internalize it, and keep on going. And none of these things are magic, but together they all create change. Not in a day per se, not in a month, but in a year's time, you'll look back and say, wow, every tiny little change that I made has transformed me into a better version of myself. And so it's important that I emphasize, it's important that I level with you as far as expectations. Because me personally, I used to always look for the instant gratification. Oh, I want to go to the gym once and I want to have a 6-pack. I'm telling you the truth. I know that that's crazy, but that's what I want. I want to take the class and immediately have 50 people lined up to get the service, even though I didn't market it. So that being said, just being more large scale, being more macro will hopefully motivate someone to think everything I'm doing now, my future self in 5 years and in 10 years is going to be doing the bankhead bounce on an island for everything that I'm doing right now, okay? And that's a perfect segue into number 3, of 3 ways to practice discipline as a hairstylist. So rewarding yourself. I don't believe in spending at the expense of your future self. However, when you're working hard, you may notice that you have a little less time for socializing or any of the thrills, maybe watching TV if you love watching TV. But it's important to even block out that time. Sometimes I will block out a day where it just says, do nothing. And I never do nothing, but it's just a reminder for me to relax, and not be fixated on creating content or studying or learning a new skill. Sometimes it's good to just sit in silence and in gratitude. So when I say do nothing, that's kind of what I mean. I'm still doing something, but just allowing my mind perhaps to rest, and just my mind and body, just letting my mind and body rest. That's important too, long term. So next we're going to talk about 3 ways to draw motivation as a hairstylist. And this goes back to the very first topic of, seeking inspiration. So that's how we get it in the first place. Following industry leaders, attending hair shows, scrolling through creative platforms, Pinterest, Instagram, TikTok, etc. We have so many amazing hairstylists out now. It's not hard to find that motivation. They're everywhere. They're doing new things. Everyone is reinventing or creating something completely new. And so it's not hard to find motivation to go into any lane that you want to go into. So some of us want to work in television. Some of us want to do editorial for fashion shows. Some of us want to do runways for fashion shows. Some of us want to be in film. Me personally, I'm happy with a consistent clientele of my client base. I call them corporate baddies. These are just women who are not famous, who do well, who are oftentimes client facing. With that being said, I think that it's important to curate a timeline that inspires you in your particular lane. So I don't necessarily need to follow people who are doing hair that is not my goal. Sure, it's cool for consumption, but when it comes to inspiration, I want to follow the people who are doing what I want to do. I cannot tell you guys how many times I have adopted someone as my mentor. They don't even know it, but I am delusional in that way. And I have about 3 right now who I've never met, one of which I've been on a Zoom call with. But that level of delusion is what keeps me going, by the way. One is a girl in Brooklyn who does phenomenal hair. We haven't met, but I already know that I'm going to meet her one day. That being said, though, that is what motivates me. So come on over to Delusional Island. I promise you the water is always the perfect temperature. But that is why seeking inspiration is key for motivation. Number 2 is visualize your goals. So picture life or career milestone you're working towards, such as a thriving salon, being recognized as a top stylist in your area, doing hair for fashion shows, etc. And using that exact same formula of this is the number I want, this is the amount of years that I want to achieve it in, this is the amount of months that I can work towards it per year, so on and so forth, reducing it until it is attainable today. By one single step, we have done the maximum that we can to achieve that goal. So when you're able to visualize it, I think that it gives you a like a free trial of it. Okay, I want to be wealthy and I want autonomy. I want to fly around the world when I want to. I want to meet other people, eat good food, experience different cultures, dance to different music. Earlier this year, I went to the UK and I went to Europe and I did those things. And that was the free trial. That was me living a lifestyle I aspire to have long term. And I got to do that for the duration of my trip. And I came back motivated. Yes, yes. I came back motivated and I acquired the discipline to work towards my goals. So I may not make it to Europe next year. I may not. But that's okay because with the way that I'm working, with the work ethic and the discipline that are fueled by the motivation from a few months ago, I know that it is only a matter of time before life catches up with me and my delusions because we are already there. So that being said, it's important to visualize your goals and to take it another step further. Vision boards. I don't know if you guys think I don't know what you think of it, but being able to visualize it, journal it, write it out, are all ways of actualizing it. As often as you can revisit and keep it in the forefront of your mind, you are able to do something every single day that puts you one step closer to it. And lastly, connect with your peers. I've done a lot by myself, but it took for me to join mentorship programs and memberships where other people aspire to do the same delusional things as me. I'm in groups where people want to make chunky 6 figures in a year. And some of those people are making 5 figures in a month. And so it started off as a delusion and ended up as a reality for my peers. And if I'm surrounded by people making 5 figures in 4 weeks, surely I will gain something from being in such close proximity to these people and their willingness to share and discuss these details with me. And that's another reason I created the membership, the 5-Star Stylist, because if we have a group of motivated hairstylists who are geared towards the professional aspect and experience of hair service, we can other ourselves, and the stylists who are not professional and don't do what needs to be done are left in the dust. I don't think that it's decent that people are expected to shampoo their own hair and all of these different things, unless they're getting braids, of course. But even with that, but there are so many stylists out here dropping the ball that it is my mission to have them raise their standards or go do something else. Because the way that mechanics have a bad rep, I don't want that for the beauty industry. This is a luxury. This is a beauty. This is aesthetic. And as much as I love all of those things, by now I'm sure you understand that how we feel internally and how we treat ourselves is more important. What good is being a beautiful vessel if you are trash on the inside? And so when people leave these appointments feeling upset and betrayed and berated and offended, we kicking them out. We don't want them in this industry, right? So with that being said, thank you guys. This was probably a longer episode than normal, but let me know how you guys liked it. If you are watching on YouTube, let me know how you like the new setup. And if you're interested in learning more about the 5-Star Stylist program, the link will be below. The membership is free. Just check it out. I would love to get the ball rolling with that because this is a passion project, but also a movement for me. So thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, keep it 5 stars. I'll see you. Peace.